But what the Enlightenment began to do was, as I mentioned earlier, shed light on these things that were going on, such as racism and poverty. And the effects of imperialism, all of these things. The idea of awareness about them begins with that group of men. But that's not what he's talking about when he's talking about the Enlightenment. He's talking about the enlightenment of us over time, of human beings over time. And how change happens, and during the course of events, certain things happen. Certain periods of history are periods where really difficult and horrible things happen, and other times are times where it seems like some pretty progressive things are happening. But overall, if you look at the data, and this is what Mr. Pinker does, it shows that things are indeed getting quite a bit better. But the fact that we don't see it, or many don't see it, I believe is one of the biggest, problems that we have. And so if we become more aware and take a longer view, we begin to see that we are making a difference, that we are becoming aware and increasingly aware. And we are making positive changes in making the world a better place. However, we are our own worst enemy in that. If you begin to see the world pessimistically, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't even try anymore, because what's the point? It's not going to work. So it's incumbent upon us to sort of wake up to reality, or at the very least to understand that these things that are happening around us are once again illusions, our own creations, false evidence appearing real. Sorry, go ahead, roll your eyes. I don't care. It's true. So some of the things to remember, to keep in mind, and this is based purely on statistics. Around the globe, improved healthcare has dramatically reduced infant and maternal mortality in third world nations across the globe. This is not to say that there aren't health issues. But it is to say that it is amazingly improved from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago even. Children are better fed, better educated, and less abused. Workers make more money. And again, we're thinking globally here. They're injured less frequently, and they retire earlier. In the U.S., fewer people are poor. This is not, again, to say that there isn't a problem with income disparity, but there are fewer people who are poor. Elsewhere in the world, especially in Asia, billions fewer live in extreme poverty, which is defined as income of less than $1.90 per day. Statistics are showing that the world is growing less polluted, has more parks and protected wilderness, and carbon intensity, which is the amount of carbon released per dollar of the GDP, has also been falling almost everywhere. And this is a sign that we may be capable of addressing our two biggest challenges, poverty and climate change. Statistics show globally that there are now fewer victims of murder, war, rape, and genocide and life expectancy has been rising, and thanks to regulations and design improvements, accidental deaths, like car crashes and lightning strikes, are in steep decline. And despite what we're often told, students today report being less lonely than in the past. And though Americans feel overscheduled, studies also show that men and women alike have substantially more leisure time than their parents did. Apparently 10 and 6 hours more per week, respectively. So Stephen's message is very simple. Progress is happening. It is real. It is meaningful. And it is widespread. And various sources of pessimism, what he calls the progressophobia of the media, which focuses almost entirely on of-the-moment crises and systematically underreports positive long-term trends. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that now the demands of the media are built on 24-hour news cycles, so you have to have something on the air every moment of the air, and that means the focus has to be on of-the-moment crises, because nobody's going to stay tuned to watch long-term trends. I are looking for something to feel good about. There's a whole lot to feel good about. But unfortunately, it's not going to be, shown to us. We're going to have to kind of look for it. And thankfully, in this technological world that we live in, we now have the ability to on our own get the information that we really need, instead of relying on false evidence appearing real. And if you follow the mindfulness technique I was just telling you about, you again have another tool in your tool belt to allow you to take a different look at the world from a different perspective. And so one final thing to talk about, and it looks like we won't get to our discussion of breakfast. We'll have to wait until next week for that. And that is how the future of the presidency will evolve. as different as our last two presidents, Mr. Obama and Mr. Trump, are, they have something in common, which is they have rewritten sort of the history of presidential politics. And they are sort of part of a culmination of trends that have been going on since the Watergate era, which is the fact that both of these men were elected less on their background or experience and more on how they were going to be different from the traditional government. Barack Obama was the first African American president, breaking one mold, and Donald Trump, with no government or military experience whatsoever, has broken the other. They were, in their own ways, the most unlikely people to ever get elected to the presidency. And the current presidency continues to experiment with a new way of looking at what the president should be and can be. We've also seen trends. I should just remind people that a lot of these trends include presidents becoming more powerful or taking more power than was originally intended. And that happened under Obama as well as this president too. Having a celebrity type of personality, even though Barack was not a movie star, if you remember when he was campaigning, he became very rock star-like. And his personality was such that it lent itself to the cult of celebrity that we kind of have today, and in projecting an image that the media could take and make something of, and that this proved more important than your traditional qualifications. So this may mean that what it takes to be elected president is different. You have to be able to manage your image in the media and galvanize your base, get your base out there. And this is quite different from any other time in American history. Of course, the most enduring characteristic of American presidents from the beginning has been the monopoly of white men. No women or candidates of color made much of a dent on the presidential selection process. Candidates of color ran for not their party's nominations and lost. Women ran and lost. Women were nominated to be vice president with no success. And then, of course, there was Hillary Clinton in 2016. But Obama had none of the traditional qualifications of previous presidents, being of mixed race, being of, minimal experience. He'd only been in the U.S. Senate for about 3 years when he ran for president. So what we've historically considered to be acceptable characteristics have been shattered. And so this is why we're seeing this influx of an amazingly diverse group of candidates. It's a positive thing, of course, but it's also a little bit difficult when it comes to having to hone down and find